You're listening to For the Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation.
Hello there.
Welcome back, everyone, to our Mandalorian recaps here on For the Republic, a love letter to Star Wars animation. It is Andrew and Don back again to talk about Chapter 19, The Converts. And this was one of the most different episodes of The Mandalorian that we've seen so far. It honestly felt like I was watching Andor at points.
It really started with like Mandalorian vibes, and then it just took a real sharp detour into like Andor territory, which I love. Let's be clear here. That was really cool.
It was such a great episode in my mind, and I love finally getting to see some spotlight put on the New Republic. And in my opinion, starting to showcase reasons why the New Republic failed. Because there's a lot of not so great stuff going on in the background of the New Republic. I'm not going to say it's Empire bad, but you can definitely see why the First Order was just able to swoop in real quick and then just immediately take control. Because, yikes, some of this stuff.
Well, what I've really found is, because I've read a bunch of, like in the last couple of years, I've read a bunch of the new canon Star Wars novels, and one thing I can say about this episode is that it really consistently lines up with the tidbits that we have gotten in those novels, because you see in The Princess and the Scoundrel, the big top brass of the Alliance, now the New Republic, they're stretched very thin in trying to forge new alliances, convince certain systems to join the New Republic. We see later on in Poe Dameron Freefall just how kind of like disparate things are, and I haven't read the Aftermath books yet, but I know that they did delve into this, as does the Alphabet Squadron trilogy.
Yes,
but from what I'm hearing, all this lines up pretty well with what we've seen so far, and it was really cool to like take a second away, because I know some people are going to try and say that it's filler, but it's not. It's like the opposite of that, because again, we're seeing a vital part of this world that this time that the Mandalorian is taking place in, and we're seeing that there's a bit of tragedy here with the New Republic, because it's not to say that they're no better than the Empire. It's something a little bit more nuanced that's going on, where because they're stretched so thin and there's not enough of them to properly implement the system of government, it's because the temptation to fall into certain ways of doing things just because it's easier, that becomes a problem. And that's what we see later on in this episode.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it just shows that I guess they weren't fully prepared. Like, a lot of the stuff that they implement, it's like, oh, there was such an emphasis on discarding all these Imperial ships and resources and stuff like that. But then certain things that they keep, it's like, why are you? Yeah, exactly. The Mind Flayer, the Stranger Things villain, is here in Star Wars, and it's like, well, why? And I was watching the Star Wars Explained review of this episode, and they were like, they mention how it could be on a very low setting described as soothing, but it's like, why do they still have the option on the machine to turn it up all the way to where it's a torture device?
Why would you
eraser?
Why would you leave one person, why would you leave two people, one other person in the room who's part of the Amnesty Program, who is ex-Empire? Like, I know that they're being very trusting and forgiving, and Kane has seemingly shown herself to be useful, but my goodness, that is remarkably sloppy, and it just kind of goes to show that, like, just because the Rebel Alliance thwarted the Empire and they're on balance a whole lot better than the Empire, because of course they are. Not everyone is Leia. Not everyone is Mon Mothma or Admiral Akbar. Some of these people are a lot more willing to compromise and aren't as capable of doing the job that needs to be done effectively. Also, side note, I know we've jumped ahead a lot, but Was I the only one who laughed when Paul Pershing was like trying to tell that the doctor who was a Mon Calamari, it's a trap?
Oh yeah,
He was
that was
trying
so
to tell
great.
him, and he was like, "You've got the wrong guy here. It's the other guy who says that. The other guy who says
right.
it's a trap." Yeah, I feel like overall, it's just really impressive what's happening. What's happening with the New Republic, and we also see with the people later on with the opera house. That's what I was going to say.
Yes,
We get to the opera house. We get to
Like-
the opera house that we see in Revenge of the Sith. Like Coruscant on the whole looked gorgeous. Like it was such a nice contrast to how it's presented in Andor, because you've got a lot of industrial, a lot of like desaturated colors, a lot of industrial feeling, and everything in the Coruscant
it felt
segment
alive again.
Exactly. It
Yeah.
feels alive and bustling with color, but just because of that, that doesn't mean that there isn't like that it's not still compromised to a degree, because after
bit,
Pershing gives that speech, we see him mingling with the like uppity ups of like Coruscant culture, and they're all like
Empire,
the new,
Rebels, New Republic.
I can't
lose
keep track of them
them.
these days, and it's that's so consistent with Andor, because it just shows that like these rich upper like 1%ers, they don't care, they don't like, they just want to go about their lives and just be like comfortable, and then like they just don't get involved. They're like, I don't get involved in politics, I just want to stay out of it. And it just shows how, you know, there are all these people still, regardless of how much the Empire's tyranny stretched across the galaxy, that there are those people who, because of their station, they weren't affected by it, and they continue not to be affected by it. And because of that, it doesn't really make a difference to them who's in control, and they don't even like notice the difference, which is just, it's quietly chilling.
A little bit, yeah.
I also should mention Bloodline as well. Like because we were talking earlier about like the connection with the books. Bloodline more than any book, I think, has just like illustrates how the New Republic gets mired in certain politics and not wanting to fall into the Empire, not wanting anything to do with the Empire, effectively. Like, oh, let's scuttle all the ships, let's have a decentralized government so that it's a lot harder to do things, a lot harder to make decisions. And then you have like we see that here with like the Amnesty Program, which is like, you know, it's kind of it is to a degree like it's a good thing, like it's forgiving, but it's also, it's like it's too much and not enough. Like where they give these people a lot of leeway where they've put them, but they're also dehumanizing them. They're not they only have like droids to talk to as effectively their parole officers. They are given numbers instead of names. They give it all. They're just shunted in.
They're still stuck in the numbers thing. It's like they're still just numbers to the New Republic. And then the fact that they can't leave the area that they're being housed in, it's reminiscent of a lot of like real world institutions, especially like that the United States implemented after World War II, and other countries around the world, Operation Paperclip being one of them. That was very controversial, but it was a way to integrate these people back into society and for them to atone for their sins, or if they just wanted to get away from that and start a new life. And it's admirable that the New Republic is doing that, and they're saying that maybe these people were just in fact stuck in a government they wanted no part of. And again, I'm for and against this amnesty program, because like I see the good things in it, but I can also see how it could end up being an issue, like how it was in this episode, and especially the way they go about it, where it's pretty much just like a concentration camp still, but they have to do work for the New Republic, and they want to help the New Republic, and we can see how some people's certain allegiances may be elsewhere, which I'm still not recovered from. But it was a great introduction to this, and then just seeing Pershing back again, and the way that the episode made me go on a couple twists and turns, because at first I was like, okay, so he's just like, he's got to be just undercover, right? Like he's still got to be working for Gideon. And then it turns out, no, he's like actually wants to get away from the Empire. He actually wants to help the New Republic, but he can't get out of his own ways of falling back into those old habits of wanting to continue his work, and when he's influenced and when he's like being egged on by outside sources that claim to be friends, it just it turned out bad for Mr. Connor Chikiti there, which let's just take a moment to acknowledge our fellow co-host's amazing performance in this episode as Dr. Pershing. He did such a wonderful job, and he's currently not here because he's recovering from the Mind Flayer, but I'm sure we'll have something to say to him when we talk Bad Batch tomorrow, because you did good, Connor. You did good.
You did good, bud. Yeah,
I was very impressed. I didn't realize you had those kind of acting chops on you.
Also, didn't realize you had such a fixation for travel biscuits as well.
Exactly, he really likes them travel biscuits. I thought chocolate milk was your thing, Connor, but I guess it's travel biscuits now. So there we go. Let's now jump back a little bit and talk about the opening of the episode. Yeah, I found it very intriguing that Bo-Katan is withholding the fact that she saw the mythosaur from Din.
Well, it's the thing where it's like she's not entirely sure, like that has like because there's the thing, and I think it kind of shows how big and seismic an event this is, because like these things are supposed to have been extinct for years, centuries, and Bo-Katan is someone who has never really believed in the traditions, the ways of her people. She's because she has been at the top in a sense. She has had the chance to see a lot of it as like just often pageantry and show to keep the masses entertained, and so like to see something that literally mythic and just like it shakes her, and she's not even sure like did I really see it, did I just imagine that? Like I feel like it's a strategic thing as well, because she's withholding it from Din. I think she knows this is a huge deal. Like the minute that she asks him if he'd seen anything and he says no, and then at that moment you can kind of see the gears turning in her head of like, I think this is something I need to keep close to my chest, really, which, as we see later on, is very interesting. I don't think it means anything villainous, potentially, because I don't think that's where they're taking Bo-Katan at all. I think it's more just setting up an ideological conflict, really, and just giving her something potentially to rally her people. But, you know, obviously she has to try and we understand why. I at least understood why she has to keep this close to her chest, because, like, you know, she was very open about her intentions before, and she shared her desires and intentions with all of her followers. And the minute she didn't get the Darksaber, they all melted away. They all
left. Yeah,
they all buggered off and like just started doing other stuff, because they were like, "Oh, you don't have the Darksaber. I guess you can't rule Mandalore." Or so I understand her reasons for doing that.
I do as well. I'm assuming she's eventually going to exchange that information and be like, "Hey, yo, I saw a mythosaur in the living waters. Like, we need to, if there's any time to retake Mandalore, it's now. Like, the planet is not poisoned." But Bo-Katan ends up getting into a little bit of a situation on her own later in the episode, kind of falling back, very Din Djarin-esque, falling backwards into a new situation. But they leave Mandalore, and they are intercepted, no pun intended, by a bunch of TIE interceptors, which was great to see in live action. And we just get a really, really cool dogfight space action scene. Like this whole sequence where they are trying to get back to, I always forget the name of the planet.
Kalevala, I believe it is.
Yeah. They're trying to get back there, and like the TIEs are following them the whole time. Din like ejecting from the gauntlet.
That was so cool.
Just going out and like getting back into the N1 and then just joining her in space. It was such a cool fight. You really got to see like how well the two of them work together, especially in this format of Din on the N1. And we just get to see more ways that he's tricked it out, like the ways that like the weapons he's installed on there. It looked super awesome, this whole fight.
Yeah, and we just get to see like Oh yeah, no, yeah, you go.
Oh, I was just gonna say it just looked like amazing. Like I was shocked how
Yeah.
good it looked, and just how I still can't get over the fact that A, we're seeing Bo-Katan's ship in live action, and B, just the way that her everything about the way that they brought her into live action has looked great. Like her armor, I'm just still shocked every week. I'm like, this looks so good.
We're
Uh,
seeing like Clone Wars stuff in action. It's amazing as well.
yeah,
Like I saw someone also make like a Battlestar Galactica reference, like saying, "Oh, like about how it's because she played Starbuck in that show, and like we get to see her piloting skills here, which is just like really cool." And I imagine that factored into like some of the making of this episode, really. But as you said, the whole sequence was so much fun. Like we're getting to see like a dogfight on a different planetary surface. Really, I think the only other time we've seen like a dogfight over water was on Takodana in The Force Awakens. But there was a lot of cool stuff. I loved the like drift move that Bo-Katan pulled at the
yes,
end, and it was so cool seeing the two of them work together. Like, and I think that's the thing. Like, we're seeing how, despite their differences, they respect one another now. They are on the same page, at least with regards to respecting each other as warriors. And like, also, just as I noticed, Bo-Katan is calling the Mandalorian by his first name. She's not calling him Jaren.
yeah.
She's called or warrior or whatever. She's calling him Din. She's addressing him with that kind of intimacy. And so is Din. Din calls her Bo now, which kind of gave me like Game of Thrones vibes when Jon Snow's like he calls Daenerys Danny. So which is like that could be a sign of like their dynamic solidifying, which I really like. I just like that these two are like an actual duo now. They have like a whole dynamic and a mutual respect.
Yeah, and there's a mutual respect and mutual trust, considering Din leaves Grogu and R5 on Bo's ship.
Yeah, he beats those interceptors, and he doesn't even need an astromech in the cockpit. Like that's how good he is.
Goes all out, which I thought was again even further reason why I thought this scene was awesome.
I mean, you just said about the gauntlet as well. I still can't believe it's just hitting me now that I've just seen an N1 starfighter get in a dogfight with freaking TIE fighters. That's insane. That's the kind of shit like that I would do with like my Lego toys and like the toys I had when I was a kid. I was like, oh,
I know.
Yeah, so it's so cool. It's just
so cool seeing like a relic from the prequels and something from the original trilogy interacting. It's so great to see that, and I still can't get over the fact that there's a freaking N1 starfighter that the Mandalorian is piloting. Like I'm still
so cool.
Like that is still probably my favorite thing that the Book of Boba Fett gave us was Din's new ship being one of my favorite Star Wars ships ever. It's just like so exciting.
So
but right when they think they got out of this and they're about to go back to the castle, Din notices a bunch of TIEs coming on the planet, and they just bomb Bo-Katan's castle. So Bo has now lost her home again. And even though we've only seen this Castle Kryze in person for 3 episodes now, you can just feel the weight that this loss has on Bo-Katan. Like she loses her home planet, is destroyed by the Empire. And then right when she feels like she's escaped and right when she's getting back into the fight, they come back and this Imperial warlord destroys her ancestors and her family's castle.
I know. I felt
tragic. I wonder
like
if
Din lost his ship.
I wonder if those people that she had working there, I wonder if they got out or if they perished.
Yeah, the poor droid that worked for her.
Yeah.
Is he safe? Is he all right?
Is he all right? Where is that droid?
I got to agree with you, man. It surprisingly hit me a bit because like it was very similar to like Din losing the Razor Crest, where it may just be a ship or a structure, but there's like history in there, and like they put so much effort into the design of that place. Like it felt very ancient, like there had been a lot of history there. There was that beautiful kind of like statue sculpture on the wall next to her, which they made sure to frame like appropriately. Like her family history is all there, and the Empire and the Sith effectively have taken so much from her already. So it's gutting to see her lose even more. And you mentioned the Imperial warlord, which is very interesting because Bo also makes sure to mention in her dialogue that's a lot of ships for an Imperial warlord, which kind of makes you think it's more than just a warlord. Like, could it be Gideon, or is it Thrawn? Maybe
is it the
like
Grand Admiral?
Yeah,
who knows? We'll have to see, because there is it could very well be Gideon, because there's a line later on in the episode that implies that he may have escaped from his tribunal, and like the status of where he is in the galaxy are unknown right now, which is different than what I was expecting, because I thought a lot of what Gideon's role was going to be in the season was going to be like that Hannibal Lecter kind of like psychological moments where they're just talking to him like from the prison, and then he'd eventually break out near the end of the season and be the main villain again in season 4. But alas, there we go. So Din puts in coordinates for them to escape. They escape the ties, and then we don't hear from Din and Bo for like 40 minutes. And I know a lot of people were like, oh my God, because this was the longest episode of The Mandalorian that we've ever had. And a lot of people I saw were like, like, you give us the longest Mando episode and Din's barely in it. And I'm like, I need to tell you how stories work. I need to tell you that there are more than one character in the show, guys.
and
like,
it's good. It's good to focus on other characters.
I know.
And like, because it's
And
been
what
a
were
criticism of The
people
Mandalorian.
saying? Like, oh, we want to know more about the New Republic. We get more about the New Republic. Filler, where was Din? It's like, oh my God. It's like,
but we also get more about like
new characters. Like, these are characters we've known, at least in Pershing's sense, since the first season.
And
so,
honestly, with Pershing, outside of like the mystery and like his station as like a cloner scientist who presumably was stationed on Mount Tantis one time, we don't really know a lot about Pershing, and we knew even less about Katie O'Brien's Imperial officer, who we actually get a name for.
I was going to say, did we even have a name?
We didn't get a name for her until this episode, which is Elia Kane, which is a really cool name. But I really like that they took the time to flesh these two characters out, because other than Gideon, we've been a little bit limited in terms of like the kinds of characters. It's been something of a criticism for The Mandalorian that, that we've had a lot of characters and settings that don't really get names, or we don't really get a lot of like information that some people might deem necessary, and we're getting it here. We learn more about Pershing, we learn about his backstory, we learn how he's not really motivated by any kind of loyalty to the Empire. He just wants to conduct science, and he has a personal reason for doing that, which makes him way more compelling for me, at least. And we also get to learn a bit more about Elia Kane. Even and with her, it's not so much like backstory, but it's more just a sense of like what kind of character she is, how she is. She's seemingly very friendly. She's seemingly like it took me aback initially that she was that she seemed rehabilitated, but then the more the episode went on, the more I was like, yeah, no, this lady's she's hiding something.
Oh,
she's definitely.
I was thrown for a loop, because we start the episode, or we start this segment on Coruscant off with Pershing's like TED Talk thing, where he's explaining more of his
TED Talk.
Explaining more of his programs, and like what he wanted to focus on with cloning and his research. And I guess we know part of the reason why Grogu was captured, so the force sensitivity that he had could be implemented into this clone data.
And that has me excited as well, because like, not to interrupt, sorry, but like the this is kind of a section of the EU that I'm probably a bit more familiar with because of the Jedi Knight games. Because a big part of the plot in those, like Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy, revolved around characters being like artificially given force powers. They were called Reborn, and I feel like that's kind of a similar thing that Gideon's faction and Pershing were kind of, that was the ultimate aim here, because we already know like cloning has already been perfected by the Sith Eternal. Dathan is Rey's father, is already around and existing.
Yeah,
I think some people,
I saw a tweet about it saying, I wonder if Pershing was attached to those projects, and that's why he tried to get Grogu's
I think some people
DNA.
are saying Snoke's around at this point as well. So
I don't see. That's what I'm trying to think, because I thought that this was going to lead to Snoke being created, but if he's already around at this point, that because there's that moment later in the episode when they Pershing really starts to be like, yeah, I need to work on my cloning stuff again. They play Snoke's theme or a variation of it from The Force Awakens,
and they
which
did that
also
in season
doubles
2 as
as
well.
well, yeah, which also doubles as the Opera House theme from Revenge of the Sith.
Indeed.
So, well, again, people always thought that as a cue that Snoke was Plagueis. Maybe it was a cue that Snoke was made by Palpatine this whole time.
That was such a wild time when everyone
I
was just like
I was
frantically speculating about
fully
Snoke.
on board with it too. That was the
Yeah,
thing.
same.
I was like,
That's
oh
the
yeah,
thing.
he is Plagueis. It's like,
Yeah.
because it's like, oh, they never said he was immune for sure in the new canon, so it could be Plagueis. And then who knows?
Yeah, and then like Last Jedi came out and completely subverted our expectations in the best way. Like, for the record, I love what they did with Snoke, where they made him, they dug into him a little bit, character and personality wise, and then they just blindsided us all by having Kylo Ren just straight up murder his ass, which was just absolutely a great shock. I loved it.
Yes, definitely. I'm so, first of all, the fact that we got Star Wars TED Talks is pretty awesome to me. And then we get to see that. And then it makes you think that Pershing has some type of importance in the New Republic government at this point, because we still don't know how much time has passed in season 2. There was the 2-year thing that was thrown out there, but we still don't know if that's true or not. It definitely feels like a lot of time or a decent amount of time has passed.
Yeah, I feel like it's been a few months.
I'm going to say at least a few months to a year since season 2.
I think 5 months at least. I think that sounds the most to me, because he's been here long enough that he's used to it, but he's also been here long enough that he's starting to feel frustrated with his new station. And I think that kind of leads to like this moment that we hinted at, where like he returns to the sort of apartment block where all of the Amnesty ex-Imperials are like situated, and we have that moment where he's invited to join the table.
And then we see Elia Kane there,
and they have that really interesting conversation, like where you're seeing them like saying, "Oh yeah, we're really happy that the New Republic's here. The New Republic way better than the Empire." But man, you remember those biscuits? There's things I miss about the Empire, and it just shows that like these small details. It just informs the fact that the New Republic are out of their depth sadly in dealing with this, and how they're not. Their dehumanization of these Amnesty individuals, where they're giving them a form of forgiveness, but they're also at the same time dehumanizing them and cutting them off from the rest of society. It's leading to little breaks like that, where they're like, "Oh, actually, there are things I miss about the Empire," and stuff like that is how a kind of fondness for the Empire accrues, and like the desire to kind of like just keep the Empire going. That kind of stuff just sort of like keeps going there, and that is effectively how the First Order was able to like step in gradually and ultimately like cripple the New Republic.
Yeah, because a lot of what what we see in the New Republic in this episode feels like is they're just slapping their logo on pre-existing stuff and being like, "Oh, it's completely different, guys. Don't worry, we're fighting for the good here." And it just makes me, I've had this opinion that the New Republic sucks since like we started Mandalorian. I was like, man, I can totally see why the First Order just came in here and said, "All right, bye. We're blowing up Hosnian Prime." and it's just they're not. It's definitely not. And we talk about how flawed the Republic was during the Clone Wars, but it's not even close to what they were at this point. Maybe like, because we still see the corrupt bureaucrats, we stay out of politics, putting a face to the there's no politics in Star Wars right there. Are those aristocrats?
We should, we should direct them to the merch store. Yeah, that's I'm sure they love it.
We gotta
I'm sure they
put
love a
that.
t-shirt.
Yeah, I don't know if I want to make that a shirt. I feel like that would go. I feel like the wrong crowd would find that.
Yeah. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean it's ironic?
Yeah.
I thought this. I genuinely thought there were no politics in Star Wars.
Like no politics, no screws, no bricks, and just put that up there, and the wrong crowd will find it. And I don't know if that is a good idea. But we do see Pershing being greeted with a case of those travel biscuits, and we're like, okay, so maybe Elia Kane is helping out, because at first I was like, oh, she's just trying to sabotage him, or she's like, oh, that Pershing's up to no good, because I had no, I was watching this episode in the wrong way, where I thought Pershing was going to be secretly like talking to Gideon. Also, shout out Shelby Young, who was the voice of that like Coruscant. Coruscant has been around like the
Wikipedia entry. Yeah, like, I've seen that joke before, and it so fits.
To. Also, shout out to Lee Isaac Chung for the direction job that he did on this episode.
Dude came to play. Like that's a big lift to have your first episode be like, oh, a massive cutaway from the characters and an episode that's going to be built a lot around making areas with green screen like look really good. But like, my goodness, this is probably the most impressive I've seen the volume be used in The Mandalorian for a while, because like those environments, they looked amazing. Like it looked film level with the way Coruscant was being presented. Like that whole square was where both Kane and Pershing go. That's awesome. That was such a cool place to go. And we got basically a High Republic reference, like with the mountain peak. I that was such a cool thing to see. I just loved that to see that on screen.
Yeah, everything with that, like getting to see that. There were so many little High Republic references in that Coruscant Fair too. Also, shout out to the carnival version of March of the Resistance that plays during this scene.
Yes,
while they're eating their little like space popsicles, like the glowing popsicles.
So that's basically, which kind of shows that like just like it's kind of a nice little reversal of the of in Solo, like when we hear the Imperial March as like a recruitment propaganda thing for like joining the Empire. Like we're hearing the March of the Resistance, but like it shows how the Resistance is the good parts basically of the New Republic, the best of it. And I just kind of like that's reflected in like an upbeat carnival song, you know.
Getting to see that whole square, like, I thought that was awesome. I thought that was maybe the most vibrant Coruscant has looked in so long. Which gets me to the tweets or Twitter. Don, aren't you so excited that we're finally seeing Coruscant again after so long? It's been
so exciting.
Years.
It's been years, man. It's like I haven't seen it in ages.
I know. It was Revenge of the Sith.
I mean, the
last time we saw it. Like
the real thing I'm thinking about is like, when are they going to like sell those like glowing ice pops at Galaxy's Edge? Those things
it's happening soon. They're going to find a way to do it. I'm pretty sure one of the things that they say is an item at Galaxy, something fizz. I don't remember what it was that Elia Kane offers Pershing, but I'm pretty sure that's an item there, but I could be getting it wrong. But then we get to see a glimpse of Pershing at work, and you realize, why are we trashing all of this Imperial stuff? We can still use this for good. We can repurpose it. And it's like, oh, you're gonna jump through hoops, just do your job. Like, I can't help you out here. They're definitely not gonna do that for an Amnesty Program guy.
Yeah,
exactly. And then
that
we
whole
see
office
him.
block. That was the part of the episode that gave me Andor vibes the most. It really
reminded me a lot of Cyril's.
Yeah,
the Bureau of Standards, and then just him trying to figure out, what's going on here. And then we start to see a little bit of tension when he's answering those questions. Very Blade Runner 2049-esque when they're doing their test at the I don't remember. I think it was the police academy with Ryan Gosling's character, where he keeps being asked all these questions to see if he's following his programming. Very reminiscent of that in my mind. And then we get to see Elia Kane be like, okay, we can get you this lab equipment. We just have to go off site. We have to go off location. And we see that she's done this a couple times. I loved the scene on the train where the droid was just following them the whole time. and we get to see this trust being built up between the two. And at this point, I'm like, wow, look at this new group of besties. I sure hope that nothing happens to them or no big thing is revealed that changes the dynamic completely. But I love this whole scene and them finding this Imperial scrapyard. This is something I feel like we've only seen in animation. And we get it, like, getting to see a decommissioned Star Destroyer in live
So
action,
cool.
I thought was so cool. And to me, it looked great. It looked really cool.
Very similar to the Bad Batch, like where we
Yeah.
see the Venators on Coruscant in the Clone Conspiracy and Truth and Consequences just being dismantled or upgraded. It's a very cool parallel.
That's exactly where my mind went, was that Bad Batch episode.
Yeah.
Very, like, they pulled a lot of stuff from Andor, but they pulled that from the Bad Batch, which I thought was really awesome. As they're exploring this Venator, they eventually find that lab room. Pershing's like, oh, I haven't seen this much equipment in ages, and he gives a little bit of like exposition about how he always, like, since his mom was a doctor, right? Or he always wanted to,
about his mother, like how he wanted to save her life because of like organ cloning. That's the technology wasn't available, and he wanted to, like, he wanted to save her, and he wasn't able to, which is a very it's really well done, because it's the kind of backstory that makes him very sympathetic, but it also kind of shows that, like, because of where his station, it kind of shows that, like, he is not that dissimilar from the 1%ers, where he doesn't really care who he's working for. He just cares about doing his work, which
he keeps telling himself, like, oh, this is for the greater good. This is to help the New Republic. Is it? Or is it just to help yourself? Is it just to start working on your research again, and it doesn't matter who it's benefiting? He just knows it can be used for good in his mind. But they start hearing noises, and they end up escaping. They end up running because they sense someone's there, and then boom.
I for sure thought it was stormtroopers. I actually thought, like, during that bit in the episode, I thought, oh, they're gonna get there, and there's gonna be stormtroopers secretly here on Coruscant. They're gonna be, like, taking bits of the Star Destroyer to use for, like, the remnants of their, like, a sect of the Imperial remnant. But no, that doesn't seem to be what it was.
It was a bunch of New Republic officers that come in and arrest Pershing, and then immediately Elia Kane just sells him out, set him up the whole time.
Also DJ. Can I also say as well, since we're pointing out, like, all these great little details, we got one of those police patrol ships that have been on the Clone Wars and Rebels. That was so cool to see that. Yeah, like, those things have been surprisingly widespread in Star Wars. Like, they first appeared, I think, in season 5 of the Clone Wars. Like, they were especially prominent during the final arc of season 5. The Wrong Jedi arc with Ahsoka. But they also showed up in Jedi Fallen Order, and they also have appeared on Bad Batch, I think, and Rebels. So it was just really cool to see them show up. It's like it's a nice kind of bit of, like, consistent, like, just interconnectedness.
Definitely. And at this point, I was like, "Ah, man, they set us up. I knew she was up to no good this whole time." And then we get to see him attached to the what was I
Mind Flayer,
attached to the Mind Flayer, yeah. And
I don't want to do it 70s sound effects.
And we get, again, that great conversation with the Mon Calamari, the scientist that's there. Also, I thought it was so great how they decided to finally have that formal introduction between Elia and Pershing, Pen Pershing, like right before he's betrayed. It's like they have that, so now they're on, like, a first name basis. They're on friendly terms. Boom. Nope, I was lying to you the whole time. I'm setting you up.
The fact that they never interacted at all, like, during the Tom and Gideon's cruiser, it feels very believable, but also, like, man, it just shows how, like, chilling and dehumanizing working for the Empire, especially a more extreme, because you have to imagine how much more extreme the Imperial Remnant would be, given that they're on the outs now. But I totally agree with you. just very perfectly done to have them cross that
Mhm.
threshold right as they're captured, and she turns on him.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, oh yeah, this is actually a very soothing procedure. It's gonna help you out. And then,
Not a trap at all. What do you mean?
no, definitely not. So he's hooked up there, and he doesn't even get a chance to explain himself. Like, I'm sure he
Yeah.
did, but I'm sure they weren't listening to him. But then the whole
I've never
time,
wanted to punch a Mon Calamari, but this guy, he kind of made
this
me want
guy,
to.
he's getting up there. Also, they pointed out that those are like, again, Imperial uniforms, but with the New
Yep.
Republic logo on there instead of the Empire. Again, more like, and then we have this torture device that they brought up earlier in the episode. I don't remember what character they were describing as, but like, oh, he was mind flayed, and
Yeah. That was referenced in season 1 because I think they said, it was when Cara June said that the Imperials would hook her up to a mind flayer if they got their hands on her, like during the
ooh,
series 1 finale. Yeah, because the fact that she was a
interesting.
shock trooper. Yeah,
Oh wow, I didn't even think about that.
yeah. So
Uh,
this is something that's
Kara
been built
who?
up.
You must
Yeah,
mean Bo-Katan.
yeah,
I don't.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, yeah, sure.
Uh,
Yeah, I think she was
but
played by Lucy Lawless. I can't remember.
yeah, definitely. Lucy Lawless was in The Mandalorian. If only. But she is like, oh yeah, he's my friend. I just wanna be there for him. So the other New Republic guard leaves, and she sets the damn thing to the highest setting, and I'm assuming this man doesn't have a mind anymore. It's and then just the cold look on her face of, so like, where do you
And
think
she
this
she
is
eats the
leading?
biscuit as well.
Exactly.
Well,
That was
so I've seen some people
women's wrongs.
speculate.
We support them.
Yeah, no, it's very chilling. Like I instantly kind of rate her more now as a villain just to see. And I'm
Yeah.
glad that we're getting more Imperial baddies besides Gideon because like every other
So
Imperial
hey,
villain
so I'm
aside from
assuming that she's infiltrated the New
yes,
Republic, and
yeah, she's
she's
a
still
mole.
secretly working
She's totally a mole.
with.
Like that's what I mean about eating the biscuit. It was such a confirmation. Like, oh yeah, I'm Imperial because there's I feel like she's very much just kind of taking care of Pershing. She was working out what his motivations were like, and I feel like the fact that he's not loyal to the Empire, that he'll just do his research. I feel like that makes him a danger that needs to be taken care of because clearly they I don't think he's the only person who was working on there. He was just the person who happened to be present, uh, who was like the lead scientist. I feel like they're going to have more because we saw there were whole teams of those people working at Mount Tantis. So we're probably going to get to get a look at a few extra people, which begs the question of who she's working for. Because like there was that whole line earlier about where the Gideon escaped his tribunal, which I feel like is maybe setting up the fact that he has escaped because I feel like this was the perfect chance to kind of show him as a prisoner, and they didn't go there at all. And it's a
No.
really cool subversion, like you said, because we all assumed Pershing was going to break him out, that Pershing was still loyal to the Empire, but no, this went in a completely different direction, and it was really cool to see.
And I'm assuming that uh Elia Kane still has the stuff that Pershing needed for his cloning research. So
Yeah,
is she going to use that instead? Have they
she'll
found
smuggle
someone
it
else
off.
to
Yeah.
work on the cloning stuff, since they kind of got rid of their top cloning scientist mind here? So it's all very interesting, and I'm really excited to see where this goes
Yeah.
with the series going forward, and when we get further and further towards this big threat that they're building up.
Well, we know
With
that X-wing pilot is going to appear later on and interact with Din, and well, it might not be Din that he's talking to. It could be Grief Karga because he could be checking in with him. But yeah, I feel like the series is definitely building to there being like a lot more like a bigger conflict with the Imperial Remnant going on, which we've all just kind of assumed is like an heir to the Empire, like sort of soft remake, which like
Mhm.
makes a lot of sense. Here's the question I want to ask you: do you think that this is an idea that was ported over from Rangers of the New Republic, given that show has effectively been canned now?
It very well could be.
Yeah, it's what I thought as well, because like John Favreau did say in an interview that like elements of that show are being like they're reusing those ideas for the Mandalorian, and it was done pretty well. Because like I'm still a little sad that they canned a show like that, but I get why, because they were betting the farm on a certain character, and I guess once you take that element out of it, like there's not really a ton of people that, well, okay, you could have effectively have had a different lead character. There's plenty of like New Republic characters. I personally would have gone with Harrison Dula as a lead because, you know, she's awesome. They could still be doing that for all we know, because we know that we know there's a lot of rumors that Mary Elizabeth Winstead is playing her in Ahsoka still.
Yep.
But I mean, we'll probably get that confirmed at Celebration, to be honest.
I wonder if
they confirmed Natasha, didn't they?
Yeah, they definitely did. I think she was confirmed last year. I
Yeah.
wonder if had the original plans not been changed, if we'd be seeing that show already, or if it would be debuting this year. I'm interested if
I think probably, yeah.
Katie O'Brien, like I wonder if she would have been the villain of that show.
Maybe, because we know that like the pirates they set up in the first episode of season 3, that, you know, Gorian Shard's whole crew, they're gonna apparently show up in Skeleton Crew. Like they're gonna be one of the main forces chasing the kids around who like commandeer a starship. So, you know, there's a lot of Marvel style shared universe stuff happening here, with like characters going in and out of each other's shows, which is it's really cool. They're doing a really good job of managing it, with the possible exception of Book of Boba Fett, but that's a whole other discussion.
Yeah, we'll get to that eventually. But all the Coruscant stuff I thought was excellent in this episode, but we cut back to Din and Bo-Katan, who are back at that like Mandalorian hideout that we see in the very first episode of season 3 at the beginning, when Din saves them. And there's
Which I guess isn't Concordia, because I thought it was Concordia in the first episode, but I think it must be somewhere else. Because like,
yeah, if it's that far away, that I'm guessing it has to be somewhere else. And I love how standoffish they still are with Din. Like Paz Vizsla hates this motherfucker. He's like, no, like you're an apostate, Din Djarin. And
well, you lost the duel.
You're an apostate as well. It's like,
which is
hate
like,
that, man.
nerve, the goddamn nerve of this guy to like to trash the woman who like fought alongside his forefather, who was like, you know, pre-Vizsla. That's crazy. Which is so nuts to see Bo-Katan interact with like multiple generations of Vizsla. That's just really cool. And you know, I didn't think we'd get this kind of interaction this soon. And again, it did not go the way I thought at all. I thought there'd be a more standoffish interaction between the armor and Bo-Katan, but no, she's just so like, she's just like, she doesn't care. She's so nonplussed about the whole thing. She's like, oh, you bathed in the waters? All right, fine, you can come back in. Oh,
yeah,
Bo-Katan,
exactly.
You bathed in the waters? Fine, you're redeemed. And Bo-Katan's like,
yeah, she's like, oh shit, am I in a cult?
What did I do?
And I just loved how immediately they go from like standoffish to Din to like, hey, welcome back, buddy, and they're just like patting him on the shoulder.
And I've seen a lot of concern about that. Like people are like, you're saying that cults are bad, right, John? Like you're not actually going to say that this is a good thing.
It's a good thing.
I don't think that's where they're going. I feel like the whole thruster for the rest of the season is going to be like following the Mandalorian covert as a whole, because clearly they're, you know, both Din and Bo-Katan want to like unite the Mandalorian coverts now. But I feel that, you know, we're going to get a more internal look at how the group works, and Bo-Katan is definitely not on the same page. Like, yeah, it must be a nice experience in a sense for her to have her fellow Mandalorians welcoming her as one of their own again, given how she was shunned for not picking up the Darksaber. But the fact that the episode ends with like that lingering shot of her looking at the Beskar Mythosaur skull, kind of shows that she's definitely on a different path. And I feel like there is going to be an ideological conflict between her and the Armorer, because this is the thing. Season 2 ended with Din taking his helmet off for Grogu, and he didn't do that because he was forced to, like in The Believer. He did it because he wanted to, and the episode doesn't treat that like it's a bad thing. It's one of the most moving, most touching things in Star Wars that I've ever seen, and like I don't think the show is going to walk that back and say, "Oh, hey, it's actually a good thing that they all that never take off their helmets." I don't think that's where they're going, because like it's a practical thing, because obviously Pedro Pascal, he's a very busy boy, as which we love to see. You know, he's not always going to be available there, and it's the same with Katie Sackhoff. So it's a workaround to like these characters.
This whole episode, I was like, all right, so Pedro and Katie weren't on set for this week. Got it.
I
did their helmets off the whole time.
I do love seeing the scenes where they're helmeted, because it is just that the helmet design is just really awesome, and you know it adds to the character's mystique a little bit. But I don't think the show is gonna like say that being in a cult like the Children of the Watch is okay. I feel like it's going a more nuanced direction. I could possibly even see Bo-Katan usurping control of the group, to be honest, because I feel like we are maybe going to play a little bit with like her past with Death Watch, because I feel like why put her in this group and have her interacting with other Mandalorians if you're not going to bring up the fact that she was part of Death Watch. She was part of a similar kind of cult that kind of effed up Mandalore to a degree.
Yeah, definitely, because you definitely know that there's got to be some origin between Death Watch and the Children of the Watch. Like, there's got to be some connection there. It's not just like a similar name, especially because Paz Vizsla is in here, which I'd be fine if he's just not. Just go away. Just go away, Paz.
You look cool, man, but you're an arse.
You're becoming Sid to me, buddy, every time I see you. Like, I get it. You're voiced by Jon Favreau. You can go away now. But again, I am very curious of where this is going. I think the fact that Bo kind of, like I said, fell ass backwards into a cult is kind of interesting here. I also don't think it's going to be like, oh, cults are actually good type of thing. No. But I will be disappointed if, like, the rest of the season we get no helmetless Din or helmetless Bo. I'll just be like, all right, so you couldn't get them for most of this.
Have a scene where they both take each other's helmets off and kiss. That's the natural conclusion.
All right, sure, yeah, let's go with that. Yeah.
Hashtag Dinbo, let's do it.
Grogu gets his own Mando helmet.
Yeah, like I love.
That's when they're like, all right, no, we got to stop. We can't cover the kid's face.
I've seen that speculated about, that they're going to do that for Grogu, and because there's that scene where Din is standing outside with the other Mandalorians looking on at something. They could do that, and I feel like I'd be surprised if because no one wants to see that face covered up. So no, I don't think they are going to say that. I feel like Grogu being masked is maybe something that Bo-Katan might object to. So hopefully, yeah. I mean, speaking of, I loved that shot of the three of them walking together. They're just like they're a little family, and I love it. You know, it's just a cool image.
Now, R5, is he going to get a Mando helmet? There we go.
Yeah,
we don't know.
But some Beskar, he's been through a lot. The poor fella.
Give him a Beskar like plating, to beef him up, so he no longer is.
Maybe he won't be so scared then. The poor little fella is terrified.
The R2 unit with the bad motivator. But we're back with more Mando goodness, and I'm very interested in where we're going to be going forward with not only the Coruscant stuff, but also the stuff with the Mando Covert, because I'm assuming next episode is where we're going to get a lot of those shots from the trailer of Din and all those Mandalorians fighting together.
Yeah, because it goes back to there's that whole sequence that we've seen in the trailers that looks very much like Navarro is going to come under attack, presumably by Gorian Shard, because there's also a shot of Din Starfighter with R5 in the droid socket flying away from Gorian, what we now know is Gorian Shard's main ship. So what's possibly going to happen is that I think Navarro will come under attack, and all of the Mandalorians will have to band together. It could be episode 6, though. No, it could be episode 5, I think, because episode 4 next week is being written by Dave Filoni. And that's really interesting because that could mean either Ahsoka or, as I have been speculating, Sabine could be showing up here, because we need Ahsoka
Carl Weathers is directing the episode too. So that'll be if we get Sabine, I'll cry.
Because here's the thing, like Sabine could just come in and interact with the group and not remove her helmet potentially because she's aware of this cult and she doesn't want to generate any friction. Just like Bo-Katan didn't want to initially, like she just kept her helmet on just to avoid causing a scene. Because they probably would have all been like, "Apostate, you removed your helmet. Nah, bleh."
Get out.
Yeah, get out. But like, I feel like that would be a clever workaround because whether they had cast Natasha Lubodizio both like either before or after they filmed the episode, that's a good workaround because then you just hear her voice and then you'd have like an insert scene where she takes her helmet off afterwards. But yeah, I'd love to see Sabine. I'd love to see Sabine show up and interact with Din. Like, I feel like they'd be best buds. And Din's gonna need another like Mando who handled the Darksaber. Because I'd love to see Bo train him. But as I said, Sabine training Din after Kanan trained her how to use a lightsaber, that would be so cool.
It really would. And I'm hoping for that, but I'm prepared for Ahsoka as well. And either way, I'm not going to be upset because
me neither. I'd like
we got to have Ahsoka at one point in the season to set up her own show because we got
bonus points if David Tennant appears as Huyang. Like
yes,
get the whole crew there.
Give us that. But yeah, I think that will do it for this week's Mandalorian recap. A lot of good stuff to talk about this week. A lot of stuff that is a bit different from what we were expecting for a Mando episode, but man, did it hit for me. So thank you for joining us again for our discussions. As for where you guys can find us, Don, how about you start off?
Okay, so you can find me on Twitter at Donovan Mead. I post Star Wars, Marvel-related stuff, occasionally politics, occasionally some Doctor Who stuff as well. We haven't really had any Who watch these last couple episodes, but I'm still on the lookout for people who have been in Doctor Who to show up again. But you can also find me on TikTok and Hive under the same handle at Donovan McComish. I actually just before we started recording, posted a TikTok where I did Star Wars, like Battle Royale, picking my favorite character. You'll be shocked by the result, I'm sure. You can also find me on Instagram at Donovan_McComish. And you can also find me, like Connor and Andrew, on sweditorig.com, where I write articles related to Star Wars. We all write articles. The last one I did was speculating about an Obi-Wan season 2, and we're all also part of SW Editor Fiction, or SWEF, where we write short stories or webcomics that take place within our own little canon that we've established, that are all sort of interconnected in some way. We try to stay within what is established as canon in the Star Wars timeline currently, but we're also like not above like taking elements from legends that we like or are interested in and like repurposing them for our own stories. I have written one story. It came out in June last year. It's called Scars of War, and it stars a clone trooper named Blister who is living on his own 5 years after Revenge of the Sith, where he encounters a Jedi survivor of Order 66 named Shar Kun. And both of them effectively have to confront their shared trauma that they have been through in order to survive some very particular assailants. So yeah, if you like Star Wars and emotional pain, then check it out.
Gotta love that emotional pain. As for myself, you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok at Starlight Andrew. You can follow the podcast on Twitter at For the Repub Pod and on Instagram and TikTok at For the Republic Pod. You can check out our merch store. Head over to TeePublic. We just launched it. Search For the Republic Podcast. We have 2 designs up. We have our main podcast logo design, which you can check that out. Get that on whatever you want. Head over to tpublic.com/for-the-republic-podcast. That's going to be hard to get used to. And subscribe to our YouTube channel as well, For the Republic Podcast, to watch us in glorious video form here on these StreamYard videos. Because Connor's not here, I'm going to shout out what he's working on right now. He and Jared are doing a Battle Scars review over on the Nerd Academy channel, so check that out. Go to the Nerd Academy podcast. I think they have a guest, but I'm not entirely sure. That should be out around the same time that this is dropping. Fingers crossed. And then tomorrow, at the time that you're watching this, you can check back on this channel for our Bad Batch recap. We talked about Pabu that was such a fun episode. And if you
Absolutely.
missed our episode, our season 1 finale of the main show earlier in the week, we talked about the Ryloth arc that dropped yesterday at the time of recording. Check that out. It was Don and I talking about the final story arc of Clone Wars season 1.
My boys,
really fun
Waxer and
episode.
Boyle.
Exactly. We finally, after weeks of being like, yeah, Ryloth coming soon, we finally got it out.
We finally did
check
it, yeah.
that out. It's been a very busy week for us here, but it's exciting. Next week, same thing. You'll see Mando recaps on Fridays and Bad Batch most likely on Saturday as we get closer to the end of Bad Batch season 2, and we keep on keeping on with Mando season 3. So until next time, we'll see y'all later, and this is the way.